Hi, I'm Justin. I automate order entry from emails or PDFs into Unleashed for my customers and make their admin almost effortless. Here's how. First, let's do some live tests. So here I have 2 emails. This is just a text email, right? So it's back and forth a couple of times, requesting some parts. Okay, and so we're going to send that through to the automation. This next one, same thing, send it through. This has just got the 1 email and it has a PDF here. I've called it terrible purchase order because I've intentionally made it really low quality. So I'll show you that once it's processed. So let's send that off. Now that'll take 3 to 5 minutes to process, and no matter how many we send through at once, it'll still take 3 to 5 minutes because they all process at the same time in parallel. But while that's happening, let's look at what's actually going on in the background. So the aim is to get the data into Unleashed. And there's usually 3 ways that sales orders go into Unleashed, or purchase orders. And that is through an ordering system, so either an online store or a physical checkout, where there's kind of structured data being captured and sent through. There's email, which is unstructured data but still written down. And then there's phone or dictated if you're in person, where they just tell you what you want and you need to somehow write that down yourself. So these first 2 we automate. This last one we just make easier since you do have to actually write it down. But today we're just going to be focusing on email. So when an email is received, it can be manually forwarded to the automation, or usually we set up an auto forward. So it's permanent, do it once, and then all those emails will be automatically forwarded. You can have conditions on there, but usually we set up a new email address. And so everything that was received at that email address is sent through to the automation, right? No work. Then the automation will pull apart that email and pull out the email text and any attachments. And then each one of those will get put through the AI. So the AI will go through it, read it, and pull out the key pieces of information. We'll then put it through an AI reviewer. And so you might think, well, why do that? Why can't the AI just do it right the first time? AI tends to be a bit like a human, where the first time it's busy extracting everything, it can kind of make mistakes. The second time that work's already done, so it can just focus on making sure that it's right. And so we end up with a much higher level accuracy, higher percentage accuracy by doing it this way. So then all that data comes together and we have our total final extracted order data. Okay, and then we match that against our Unleashed products. So this is to make sure that the customer has done the right thing in terms of what they've put on their order. So that each line is actually a thing that we sell and that has the right name, the right code, the right price, all of that. If for some reason they have put the wrong information on, we'll correct it with our data. And then depending on which country you're in, we may need to send that back to them and ask them to correct the purchase order so that they match, or we can just go ahead with what we know is to be the correct information. Then we find and create a client in Unleashed. If we already have them, if they're a past or a recurring customer, we can use any data that we already have. So for example, if on their PDF attachment, they haven't added their billing address, we might be able to find that from our existing database of knowledge. Then we pull all that data together into one kind of nicely formatted, organized bundle, and that's our whole order. So we've got the client there, all the products they're ordering, discounts, anything else, any other data on there. Then we have a step to handle any issues. So there's error handling all the way through here. We've been running this live with clients for well over a year now. We've got a whole list of edge cases that we handle, but I wanted to call these 2 out. So if your items are assemblies, then they can't just be put straight on because usually you run it as like out of stock until they're assembled. But we can create those assemblies and complete them so that's ready to go kind of in the middle of the automation. So that's not a problem. If they are out of stock, usually there'll be a status in Unleashed that you use to indicate that, and it will stay in that status and not continue on. We'll talk a little bit later about the custom actions, but we can have automatic reordering if something does go out of stock or goes below the alert level. And then we push the data into Unleashed. And then finally we have our custom actions. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. One other thing to call out here is if the extracted order data doesn't seem good, right? Something's gone wrong. The AI is not really confident about the quality. What it will do instead is say, hey, our confidence is low here. We're going to kick this out for manual processing. So say, hey, look, this PDF is really poor quality, or we can't extract data from it for some reason, or key data is missing. Maybe it doesn't look like an order at all. And we'll say, hey, can you please process this manually? So there'll be a queue there for your staff to handle. Hey, real quick, if you would like to have your orders go automatically into Unleashed, I have an offer for you. I will get in a 10-minute call with you and run your purchase orders. so you can see live how it handles your specific POs. If it's good, then we can implement this in your business in 21 days. Now, I only do one of these per month, so you do have to book ahead. It'll cost you nothing to see it live and working in your business. You only pay if you're happy with it and want to keep it. But I have an even better offer. If you meet 2 conditions, then I'll waive the price and it's free. I'll go through the details on that on the 10-minute call and show you how to qualify. Back to the demo. Let's jump in and see what the actual results were from our live tests. So first, let's look at email. I've set it up to send us 2 emails per order. One is an email that the client would normally receive, and one is the email that the staff could receive. And these are optional, but they give us a good idea of how the order has been taken in. So for our first one here, let's have a look. And this is the client copy. So we say, hi, we could put the client's name here if we wanted. We've received your order, details below, action required. Please review the details and either confirm or update. We've got links there. They can click, single click, and that'll push data back into the system and allow it to continue on. So it's got the items, the names, no codes were extracted, the descriptions, quantity, price, no discount here, and total. And so they can say, okay, yep, that is what I ordered. Confirm, in which case they get a thank you screen. Or if for some reason, and this is kind of like our last level of error checking, if still there's some issue here, they can say that's not correct, edit the details, and they can come to this form where they can edit the way that we've understood their order. So you can imagine this in your colors with your kind of website header up the top here, and they could come in here and say, okay, great, yeah, no, maybe it was actually supposed to be this many. Actually, no, that one there, we can delete that line, and actually want to add a new item. We also wanted this, maybe 4 of them, right? So they can come in here and do that as needed. This is just the demo one. Depending on the complexity of your items and tax setup and such, we might need to have more things that are editable, but this gives you the idea. Then they can hit submit, it goes back to thank you. Okay, so that's now updated the details in our system. So we now have the new details. And probably what we'll do there is like a secondary email to say, hey, here's the new order. Okay, but let's look at the other email for this one. So this is the one that will be sent through to the staff. And oftentimes, depending on if you've got like a higher ticket item, you might want to send it through to the staff first, have the staff confirm it's correct before we send out that client confirmation one, right? You can choose how to order these. It says, hi, attached is the auto-generated invoice, right? So in this case, we're generating invoices. That's why we do this. After the reviewing of the document and making any needed changes, because it's a Word document, so it's easy to change, please click one of the below links, right? This provides the system with feedback so it can continue improving. We also have the processing cost there. It's not calculating right now, but usually it's around 5 cents per order. So we can have a look at this and say, okay, great. You'd have your template here with your business name and details, your logo. It found the name of the client, but it didn't have the address. So like if you had a list of your existing clients, it would pull the address from there, right? So missing details would be pulled from the contact list. No PO number or date were given, right? Because it was just an email thread back and forth. And if you had any custom field, we might want to pull out some specific details. So it's got the codes here, and it has actually pulled out some specific details. So it's pulled out the material. So these ones are stainless steel. This one's aluminium, right? So if you have specific things like extra fields per item, I guess, those can be pulled out either in the description or as an extra column. Cool. And then we've got 2 links here, same as before. These ones are not about changing the order. They're about feeding back information into the system so it continues to get better and better, right? Because whenever we implement one of these systems, inevitably there'll be things we didn't realize or no one kind of thought of in the beginning. And so we tend to have a curve where it starts out with a higher number of errors, and then over time it kind of just goes off to nothing as we work out the kinks. If it's perfect, we'll say accurate to the PO, click that, thank you, great. If there are some issues, some things weren't extracted accurately, we go in and write a message and say, hey, this is what was incorrect. In this case, I think they were all perfect. Let's look at the second one. So let's do the staff one first. And so here a PDF was provided. So it's put that PDF into this order as well so we can see it. It's converted into a JPEG here. And so we can compare the two. So this is the one that came in. And do you remember when I said it was a terrible purchase order? So you can see here it's a really low quality scan. It's really messed with the numbers and letters. It's hard to read. There's some writing on it. It's not it's almost straight. I think it's actually on a slight angle I designed it to be. And some of these lines don't add up. And it's also a little bit confusing because that retail line here, this is irrelevant. So it's 3 times the cost should equal that. But like 3 times 2 cents should not equal 5 cents. So like there's some mathematical inaccuracies in here. Cool. Okay, so that's that. And then have a look at what it's generated. And so same thing, it's found the name, and here it had an address, I think. Yes, we had an address up there, so it's pulled that out. It's got a PO number, a PO date. Again, it's got all these items. I think these are all books. And then it's got the description. There was no description here, right? No description column. But it's actually pulled out that retail number for the ones that had it as like a custom field. Okay, it's got the quantities, how much it was each. There's a couple there that are 0. I don't have any logic to solve for that right now. It's a weird thing to send through on a purchase order. But if that's a common thing that happened in your business, we'd design some specific logic to handle that. And we've got our line totals. So this comes to 110474, which I think is, this is actually the exact same. Yeah, so the way I've got this demo set up is to basically take the purchase order as gospel, particularly for generating this invoice. So this one is an exact match, and it's retained the bad math. However, when we push it into Unleashed, I've done it a little bit differently, where we have to validate each thing against the items in Unleashed, and so it fixes up the math. So in real life, we'd have this, invoice generated after we do those logics. But just for the sake of a demo, it works a little bit better to go straight to it. Okay, and then we'll have a look and say, okay, here's the client's copy, same thing, and they can say yes or no. And again, we'd normally do this after we fix up that math. And so they'd actually have a different total compared to what they submitted. So that's why it's important to have this, and they can say, yes, I'm happy with this, edited totals based on correcting the math. So let's jump into Unleashed and have a look at how this looks. You can see we've got our 2 orders here, and we can see we've got our customer linked. There's no reference, no discount. In this case, there wasn't any tax. Now it's actually picked up that delivery method. I believe that was from the customer in Unleashed. That wasn't actually on the invoice. This particular customer doesn't have any delivery addresses, but if it was a past customer, we'd have that. And it's got our product lines all as it was on the invoice. All right, so that's ready to come in and either complete or add extra details if this is the first time they're ordering. Now the automation can actually complete it itself. Just depends how high quality you expect invoices to be when they come in, if you want them to have a manual check before that or not. If we go back, let's have a look at the other one. Okay, you can see here it's pulled in the address. That probably already existed on this customer. The reference is there, and then all of our items. And here it will have corrected the numbers. So we've actually got 102.92. So it's like $1 and something less. Here it's 1152 times 3 is 34.56. So that's the correct math. So now that the data is in Unleashed, we can choose what other actions we want to have happen. So we call these custom actions. Usually they happen after putting data into Unleashed, although some can happen kind of in the middle of the process. So these can be things like internally, alerting staff. So you can see we had that staff email with the feedback links. Sending a pick list to the warehouse. We didn't see that today, but that's a common thing to do. Ordering or printing shipping labels. If your country has a function where that can be done automatically. The US definitely has that. Most countries do, to be honest. And then we can sync stock levels to somewhere. So this is, for example, if you have orders coming in via email, but you also have a website, you want your website to reflect the adjusted stock based on the changes, like the stock that's been used up from the email orders. Now, this process will update Unleashed, but we want to also make sure that data gets propagated to anywhere else that you're managing stock levels. And then automatic reordering. So if it has either something's run out of stock or it's pushed it below the alert level, we may want to have an automatic email go out to that supplier and order more. It depends how structured your reordering process is. If it's very structured, then we can automate it. Okay, for clients, you saw we had an order confirmation email to the client. We might want to create and send an invoice. So in this case, our invoice was attached to the staff one, so they could edit it first. but we could just send it directly to the customer if once we've got things kind of running quite well. Or any other custom docs if you need custom, if your particular niche requires other documentation, that can also be created and sent as well. Triggering a custom email sequence so that we emails after the order, good for logistics, or also good for creating a really great customer experience. There's some famous examples of really great emails after the sale that kind of creates good feelings in the customer and creates extra loyalty, and can even be a competitive advantage. So we can kind of create an experience after the purchase. Reporting, we can add custom reporting. If there's reporting that you want that isn't already in Unleashed, we can kind of slice and dice that data however is needed. Syncing to accounting, Unleashed automatically syncs to 0, but if you have a different accounting platform that doesn't connect, or some sort of external accounting, that can be done as well. Or just custom alerts, right? So if there's a very big order or something that the management needs to know about, we can create alerts for that based on orders. And then finally, whatever else your process is, right? The point of automation and doing it this way is that we create an automation just for you. It's not like an app where it's one size fits any and you put in like a feature request and then maybe 3 years later you get something or not. In this case, we build it for you and we customize it for you. So whatever your process is, if it's non-standard or a bit complex, or other platforms aren't holding it well, that's fine. We just build it around what your process is. So all in all, what we've done is we've taken emails that are coming in either with or without like a PDF attachment, and then had them automatically go into Unleashed, plus a bunch of actions to make that really fit in well with your workflow, communicating to your staff, to clients, creating the necessary documents, sending data through to the warehouse. That's all kind of done. And what that means is that in the end of the day, you need to keep your warehouse stocked, but the actual process of processing orders can be done automatically with very little human hours required. If you are using a third-party logistics provider and they're actually sending things out for you, then realistically your job just becomes selling new clients and keeping the inventory stocked. We've got a client who said something along the lines of, we're like this close to just going to the beach, right? Because that's all he has to do. All he has to do is keep the inventory in the warehouse stocked. So if this is interesting, feel free to reach out to me. My email is down here somewhere. Here we go. You can reach out at sales@workmanagement.tools. We can build this for you, right? We can implement this so that you have your orders coming into Unleashed with any of these actions that you would like, or other custom ones. That's the demo for today. Have a great day.